My name is Paul Russell and I work at IBM. Let me introduce my great colleague, another Paul, Mr. Paul Gatlin, who is part of the team helping customers solve space challenges through software, otherwise known as Paul G. Welcome.
Hello, Paul. Good afternoon.
And our special guest today is Adam Green, Director of Technology and Consulting for Europe at Newmark Knight Frank. Welcome to SpacePod, Adam.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
SpacePod is a place for personal views only, and it's no place for official announcements or suggestion of corporate strategy. Adam, we met probably, I think, about 3 years ago when we both worked together on a very large workplace management project. And I guess we've all learned a lot. And so I'd like to open up by asking you, what do you think the industry has learned?
There's been a huge shift. I think the current sort of global situation has sort of reinforced the importance of the sort of delivery around FM, and more importantly, the people delivering those services. So as we all know, primarily, FM companies are their people. That is their service and what they deliver. And I guess at the moment, what we're seeing is the elevation of the delivery of those services. I think we'll see a shift towards the importance of this that may be reflected in terms of cost or contracts or the elevation of how strategically important FM businesses can be in both maintaining space, but also supporting the slow and steady walk back to work. These people work so hard, and they really are. You know, the front line isn't a phrase that it's just been made up. They are there every day, making sure that workplaces are being cleaned in the right way, processing procedures are being followed. There'll be an advancement and an adaptation around what they do, I think. And again, like I said before, an elevation of that around social distancing in locations, the provision of PPE, more intensive cleaning regimes, and more intensive maintenance regimes, focus around air quality. There'll always be a search for additional value in that moving forward because people want to get the most out of the services they get. But I hope more than anything, there's a higher appreciation for the people doing this work.
We love stories on SpacePod. So do you have any relating to how clients are solving space challenges? As we know, not everyone has nice new shiny buildings to work from.
Been very fortunate in my career to see some really spectacular locations, everything from supercar manufacturing all the way through to what we call heritage locations, and the nuances that come with operating modern business from a very, very old building. And I guess the point is that there's so many variances and not everyone has a shiny new build to work out of. Making sure you can clean glass and marble floors is one thing, but when you're looking at, let's take something a bit iconic like the Houses of Parliament, for example, or some of the more sort of chartered locations. Take Ricks, for example. Fantastic location, great building near the Houses of Parliament. That place is a maze. There's corridors and winding staircases. And maintaining social distancing rules in these locations will be a challenge. The guys at Ricks are well versed in that and are getting a lot of industry input into it. So there's no doubt they'll manage it well. These scenarios will be replicated all over the place in the major cities that have these heritage locations. So that's going to be a challenge as well when trying to squeeze past corridors or go down into basements that are now meeting rooms. But likewise, in new buildings, we haven't built these buildings to have corridors that are 10 meters wide. So these scenarios will be felt everywhere. And I guess the other battle is for occupiers in landlord controlled spaces is they can put their own controls in for their locations, but at some point their jurisdiction stops. And we refer to this as something we call the sphere of influence. So it's what you can do as a property manager or a building owner to make your immediate space within which your employees sit safe. So you can put in your procedures, your processes, you can put PPE in, you can make sure that desks are only being used if there's a 2-meter gap apart. You can put shielding screens up. You can put visual guides to help people around it. But if the space isn't there, you're going to have these challenges. It has to be enough to be seen to be making the effort. And I think that's where most companies are at the moment.
Can you just tell us a story about someone who's inspired you and how they've shaped your passion and really how you've ended up working where you do it at Newmark Knight Frank?
A former CEO of mine from a company I was previously at said something that's always resonated with me, that he always understands that people need to be on client sites and people need to work from home. And there's always an appreciation around a balance around that. What truly defines a workplace, a truly excellent workplace, is that when people aren't there, they should miss something, whether that's the services they get delivered to them, whether the amenities they can access, whether it's the food at the canteen, the ability to socialize, the culture, the physical environment that they're in. They should always miss something. I think that's always sort of stayed with me to such a point that working or being able to access and work in a specific building heavily influenced my own career choice. There was a job that I wanted to go for. It was in a location abroad with a fantastic building that had all the great amenities in it. It was just a fantastic sort of embodiment of culture in a physical space, which was, sounds overly romantic, but it genuinely did mean a lot to me. And I was fortunate enough to go and work there for a 2-year period. And yeah, I guess it just goes to show that physical space and the culture of a business can genuinely affect your employment choices.
Love that. And I can think of lots of buildings that I generally would say there is nothing I miss from those buildings. But equally, there are many there are many buildings that I totally agree with you. And actually, interesting enough, and your human focus, which is so important. A lot of it is the human being. You'll miss that person who greeted you in the lobby, in the reception, because they always gave you best service, or they made sure that you were okay. It's less about sometimes about the shiny infrastructure or even the technology sometimes, in my experience anyway. So that's great. So Paul, I wanted to move over to you because I think you wanted to sort of just see a bit of a challenge between some of the technology side.
Adam, I was interested to just get your view on something that's quite close to my heart, which is technology around point solutions. And by point solutions, I mean a product that's been designed for a particular purpose versus, say, an enterprise solution, which is, a far more broader application. Do you find organizations perhaps selecting something very quickly, perhaps without doing the correct or sufficient research, versus enterprise that could be perceived as being a very sort of long cycle to select?
It's a good question, and it's something that we come across on a daily basis. One of the principal things that we do at NKF is advisory around solutions. So we're constantly sort of putting our finger on the pulse of the market and looking at what the shift is, what solutions are out there from a point perspective, but also scalable and enterprise solutions. And I think, to your point, at the moment we're seeing a lot of content flowing out into the marketplace around whether it's new solutions or adjustments to existing solutions or bolt-ons that are focused around supporting businesses in getting back to work during this COVID situation. And that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But what it does is it just creates a bit of a quagmire in terms of what's out there. And if you don't have the time to go and do the research yourself, then you might struggle. I guess what I'm saying is it's easy to maybe not knee jerk, but easy to react to try and do the best thing you can, which is to find a solution to help you do the best for your clients. But I think my advice would be to stop, have a look at what you've already got. So look internally. You might already have partners, whether it's IBM or someone else that has solutions on offer that can help you, which can also help cost avoidance, but also help in sort of delivering solutions in a more speedier fashion if you've got sort of internal trusted MSAs or partnerships going on. And do that first. So if you can look internally, expand functionality in systems which can support you in what is a very physical problem. A digital solution to a physical problem is never going to be an end-to-end solution. But I guess the ability to take advantage of what you've already got internally is my first sort of piece of advice, and expand that out. But there are people out there that are in situations where they don't have solutions in their business. It's easy to react in what is quite a time-sensitive scenario as well, I would say, and grab the first thing that looks shiny and looks nice. What I will say is you need to make sure that you're looking at some sort of hybrid in terms of business process and procedure, coupled with technology. And again, I make reference to digital solutions supporting what is a very physical problem that we're having at the moment. So there'll be point solutions out there, very good ones, of course, that can support you. There'll be amendments and functional bolt-ons to reservation systems or space management systems that can support in the mapping and planning of social distancing procedures, whether that's the physical installation of visuals to guide people through space, or the sort of shutting off of reservable spaces based on the social distancing rules that are out there and the guidelines that are out there. And they'll do a good job. Of course, on the whole, there'll be some really sort of principal providers out there that with big names that can then provide that. But I guess look internally first, expand what you have. But if you haven't got anything that can support you in that area, then seek advice. You can get a lot of input online. If you need a consultancy to support you, to guide you through their view, then do that. Everyone's trying to sort of look after the pennies at the moment, but the only way we're going to support everyone in this scenario and support the economy moving is by looking and spending with people that are experts, and getting a solution out the back of it, that's going to add value and help you manage your buildings in the right way.
One last question. We'd love to hear if you can share any initiatives you're working on that's addressing some of these challenges.
I referred to before around the sort of search selection and maturity assessment elements that we deliver as part of our consultancy service. So we're expanding that, of course, to take into account and try and filter out the solutions on a tiered basis that will fit the current scenario. So we'll look at systems that are out there that can support in sort of social distancing management, building management, during this pandemic and the journey back to work, as hopefully, touch wood, it starts to slow down. So that comes into our advisory, so we can support in that search and selection. We also have a delivery team that's global that can implement solutions through partners. So the expansion of that is there. We're not pushing it hard because we don't want to. If people want that help, then they'll reach out to us, and we can engage in there. Again, to my point around trying to navigate the sort of saturated environment around these solutions at the moment. So we're pretty happy. We've got a good handle on that, and we know that we've got partners and solutions that we can bring to clients. I guess early on, we wanted to make sure that we were informing our customers globally, where we look after large portfolios. We are a real estate business after all, as well as a technology consultancy business. So using our own internal solutions, proprietary solutions, producing COVID situation reports through our own dashboarding systems that we offer to our clients, and that's going out for free. So it's a non-for-profit sort of focus for us to make sure that we're informing through a very quickly accessible tool, focus on portfolios around what the sort of COVID situation is in certain states and provinces, counties around the world. So a bit of a deeper dive into the situation around my building, if you like, and what a knock-on effect that has in terms of travel time and opening and reopening, and safety around it. So we're by no means guiding people on the sort of go back to work now, everything's fine. We would never do that, and I hope nobody else would too. But what we can do is we can give information in a consolidated area, which is quick to access, to help with making informed decisions. And that's all we can do, right? Is try and make the best informed decisions we can in a scenario where nobody has the answers.
I think we're going to need more physical space, but for fewer people, or do you think we need less space for more people? A couple of minutes on that.
Naturally, moving into recession, there'll be a contraction of certain industries anyway, but generally they sit in the service sector, which of course crosses multiple different types of real estate type, whether it's retail, industrial, all the way through to corporate. So you'll see a reduction in buildings in their entirety, especially in the retail space and consolidation around there. I think in the corporate world, I think we're going to end up in an area of equilibrium, if I'm honest. I think what this period will show is, for industry leaders and business leaders, they'll see that they can still operate effectively with remote teams in certain areas of their business. I guess what's important for those guys is to sense check that and again, put your finger on the pulse and see, does this team operate better remotely? Are they happier doing this remotely? And can we sustain this for a longer period of time? If yes, and that works for their business and it works for the people doing the work, the question is, why would you change? As long as they have the ability to come into an office when they need to access space or amenities, or to see colleagues or clients, then that need is going to remain. And we all know every building ever never has enough meeting rooms. So maybe we'll see a massive meeting revolution around that, and a reduction in sort of open office space and more sort of occasional space is probably the best way to look at it. It's the biggest question. We don't know what we'll see. Maybe we'll see decentralization. Maybe we'll see a move away from the large skyscrapers and big office blocks that we've seen in the sort of the good years since the last recession. Lucky enough to be in my second one now, which is great fun as a millennial. People moving their employees out to smaller towns, smaller cities to spread that risk, cheaper real estate, smaller locations, maybe a move even more so to the campus style way of working, where you've got bigger open spaces, less sort of confined spaces, which again brings the ability to avoid public transport in traveling into work, less crowded offices, different ratios of employees to desks, and more flexibility around it. The bigger organizations will start to experiment with those varying types of real estates, and they'll definitely form part of their strategy moving forward, which means there could be more business for the, outside the M25 corridor, and the smaller towns and cities that have amenities and affordable housing for people to move into, where real estate for corporates might become a bigger business.
We could have gone on for much, much longer, I know. So Adam, thank you for your insight, and also to my colleague, Paul Gatland. If you listen to SpacePod today, it's a big thank you, and please tell your friends. If you want to connect with Paul and I and Adam through LinkedIn, you've been listening to SpacePod. Please stay safe.